What's up, everybody? Welcome back. I'm Abe, this is EVE Online, and I wanted to walk through the spreadsheet that I'm going to share with you and also sort of talk about some of the nuances that go along with it. So right now I've got a character up that has some ships and basically has some outfits that I can use to explain it. So previously we have, let me move this over here. This is the spreadsheet as I've laid it out. I cleaned it up a little bit from the last time I showed it to you, and I've color coded it in a way that the yellow cells are what you want to change, the blue are the results that you'll be looking at, and these items over here are just references for some of these formulas. So this effectively tells you put in your weapons tracking speed, and then depending on what you're going up against, whether it's a frigate or a destroyer, and these are your targets, mind you, in your overview, you will have, or you will ideally know, what their angular velocity is. And that angular velocity is in radians per second. And these will tell you what your hit rate will be if their radians are, or if their angular momentum or angular velocity is within this certain range, right? So between 0 and 0.3, if you're going up against a frigate with guns that have that tracking, if their angular velocity is less than 0.3, then you have a 90 to 100% chance to hit them. All other things being equal. Now, there are other things that impact this, but just from a very core standpoint, 90 to 100%. Below 0.44, 80 to 100%, below 0.55. And you can set these things up in your head so that you know, if you're flying around in the same ship with some great regularity, that frigates, you need to have them below, 0.5 effectively to hit at least 3/4 of your shots. If they're destroyers, they need to be below 1.0, and if they're cruisers, they need to be below 2. So 0.5, 1, and 2, just around, right? So that's kind of how you might use this. Just keep those numbers in your head. You know what your turret tracking is, if it's somewhat standard. Now, you might be asking and you might be wondering, what do you do if you are in a bigger ship? Because so far we've only used it when we're flying a frigate. And so if you look on this spreadsheet, right now I've got 780.62, and that is when I was in a frigate and I was using small weapons, that's what that ship's and that weapon's tracking speed were. Now, what if I'm in a cruiser? And so I pulled up a rupture that I had sitting around, and that's a cruiser, and it currently has autocannons in it, which are short-range weapons. And if you see, the turret tracking on here is 46.63. So, and this is with no ammo. Again, remember, as you load ammo and once you get out into space, that's when you want to see what the actual turret tracking number is. But just for the sake of discussion, let's say we hover over our guns and we see that the 220 millimeter Vulcan autocannons give me 46.63. All right, so let's go back over to the spreadsheet, and if we put this at, 46.63? Yeah. All of these numbers change, right? So it doesn't matter what size ship I am, it just matters what weapons I'm using. Now, of course, the size of the ship that I'm in dictates what size weapons I can and will use, but in a more specific sense, don't worry about what ship you're flying, just hover over the gun, figure out what the turret tracking stat is, come over here and enter it into the spreadsheet in the yellow tab. And then you can look at what you're going up against, whether it's a heavy assault cruiser, a cruiser, even battleships. Like if I'm in a destroyer, or if I'm in a cruiser, and I've got these medium-sized guns with a turret tracking stat of 46.63, you can see that if I'm going up against frigates, that they really cannot have much angular velocity to me if I still want to be able to hit them, right? And so when I get into bigger ships, that becomes much more reasonable, although even still the destroyer is not great. And now we're into something a little bit more reasonable with the cruiser. Something bigger, which would be the battle cruiser, and now this is sort of standard. So as this cruiser and these weapons are best if they're going up against things that I'm able to keep in a reasonable range of angular velocity. So that's my cruiser. What if I was in a battleship? So I've got this ship I've named Susan, and it too has 800 millimeter autocannons. All right, so their turret tracking is 6.15. Now this is a battleship. This is, for the most part, one of the biggest ships that you're probably going to be flying around in. And so in this battleship, it was 6.15. Okay, and you can see now that it's very difficult for a battleship to take out frigates, destroyers, even cruisers. But once you get into battle cruisers and battleships, you're in a different class, right? So this is what you're meant to be killing in a battleship. That said, you can like your ship has other capabilities that allow it to really defend itself against smaller craft. So this is where drones come in when you're flying around in a battleship. But that's just for the sake of discussion. So it doesn't matter if you're in a frigate, it doesn't matter if you're in a battleship. If you look at the weapons that you're carrying and you hover over them and you see the turret tracking number here, you just punch that into this spreadsheet and it'll give you the information that you need about the targets that you have. Excuse me. So that's the basics of this spreadsheet. And this is going to work for Minmatar projectile turrets, I think hybrid turrets, and the laser weapons that the Amar use. This will not be applicable for missile weapons, and it definitely doesn't give you information about drones, although it does give you some information, right? So if I'm in a battleship and I've got this turret tracking of 6.15, you got to figure that when I'm over here, there we go, 6.15, that if I'm trying to attack a drone, the drone is going to be even smaller and faster than a frigate, and that much harder to target and attack. And so if they're orbiting me, their angular velocity is going to be much higher than even a frigate. And so it's going to be that much harder for a battleship to, I think I screwed something. There we go. That much harder for a battleship to target drones. So if if you're in a fight and if you're Galente, you don't need to worry about, what angular velocity your targets are with respect to your drones, or your drones with respect to the target, or any of those things, because it's all going to be managed without you. You can't control their range, you can't control their speed, but at the end of the day, all you really want is them to be fast as possible. So yeah, I don't have pilot training, but if we look at the skills, I know. But if we look at these drone skills, like drone avionics, it gets their control range higher. That's not what I'm looking for. Interfacing, drone damage, and fighter damage. Navigation. 5% increase in drone max velocity and fighter max velocity. So that skill will make your drones faster. And each of these, let's see, that gives them more damage. That's more damage. And that is damage, as well. So anyway, so there are skills in here that, like advanced drone avionics. I don't know. I got to get into this a little bit more because clearly I don't have the skills off the top of my head. But all you really then want to care about is whether your drones are moving as quickly as possible. So for as far as the spreadsheet is concerned, just remember, there's a legend at the top here. I'll put a link in the description. The yellow is what you want to change. The light blue is the results that you're going to be looking for. Now, that said, where did these equations come from? If you want to copy this to your own spreadsheet so you can make adjustments to it, this is where it came from. So I got it from wiki.eveuniversity.org/turret_mechanics. And I'll put the link to this in the description. But as you can see here, it gives a lot of information about angular velocity, chance to hit, and this goes into range and fall off, and it also has some really interesting visualizations of tracking speed and what that means versus tracking speed being too slow for angular velocity. You can see on the left here that it's able to hit whatever it's shooting, and on the right here it's shooting pretty much behind whatever it is that it's shooting at. So the equation in the spreadsheet that's in each of these is I'm taking the tracking speed, the signature radius, or T and S, and I'm using these multipliers. Where did I get those numbers? I got them right off of here, off of this spreadsheet. So 50% chance to hit your weapon tracking speed times the signature radius divided by some arbitrary coefficient. It's not arbitrary, but this is what people have figured out. So 40,000, 47, and so on and so forth. So this is the equation. This is where I got it. There's a lot of good information here on how to manage and use angular velocity to your advantage, what maneuvers you can use, and I may create or add to the spreadsheet to kind of give you a little bit more information on the damage itself. But that's where all that information comes from. These are the stats from the game, and that's the spreadsheet. So if you have any questions, please tell me. Hit me up in the comments, because it's, you know, like anything else, it's my spreadsheet. I created it for myself, and sharing it with you then opens it up to, you know, your own understanding of what I'm doing, which is not guaranteed. So get into it, play around with it, see what you think. If you think I've got something wrong, please let me know. If you find it very useful, great. If you have some things that you have been thinking about putting into a spreadsheet, but you haven't yet, and you would like to see me try to do it for you, that's something that I'd be happy to try as well. So take a look, get into it, play around, let me know what you think and what your questions are, and we'll get down to it. So thanks for watching. Enjoy the spreadsheet. Right now, I'm on the fence about whether to share it and have everything locked so that you can maybe copy it and use it on your own, or share it and lock everything but like the yellow cell, so you can go in and change just the part that needs to be changed, so you can't get yourself into trouble, or how exactly to share it. But right now it's on Google Drive, and I'll put a link to it, and then we'll figure out what the best way to share it is. So that's it. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you in the next video.